Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. My name is Krishna Jaffa. I started as Medic's new Chief Executive Officer on March 1st. So today I'm completing my first month at Medic, probably the newest member of the community. I'm really thrilled to be here for the CHT Roundup and excited to continue to learn more about how you collaborate with each other. It is, of course, a critical part of Medic's overall approach, and maybe even the most important part of how we want to show up in collaboration and partnership with yourselves in order to get to a point where countries, ministries of health, implementing partners, and technical partners are able to deploy open source software to achieve improved health outcomes for especially last mile and underserved populations we are trying to reach. So really excited to be here just in terms of my own interest in all things data and digital. I'm a clinical epidemiologist, been working on various applications of data science, including for geospatial, for for improved targeting of interventions at the program and national levels and at subnational levels as well, looking at the application of data stacks as they improve precision public health, while also looking at the community health worker workload, quality of coverage, and the needs and well-being of community health workers as they provide essential help at the front line. So really excited to continue to look at and learn from all of you and support you on your journey toward increasing local application of open source software. So with that, I'll hand it back to Sam. Thank you.
Just to start us off with something a little bit fun this morning, I was out on paternity leave recently, had a little bit of downtime, and decided I would try to put together a Wordle game in the CHT. And so for those of you who may not be familiar with Wordle, if there's a few people left in the world, it's a word game where you have to try to guess the mystery word. And so I'll demo real quick kind of how it works. You just punch your letters in here. I always start with irate. Your mileage may vary, but then the colors will tell you whether you guessed the correct letter in the correct place or not. And as you go through, you get 6 different guesses to try to get the right word. And as you can see here, it is, I've kind of cheated already because I know the word here. And so congratulations, I won. Fun little game, nice little demo here. But what's really interesting to me, at least, is how I was able to implement the Xform config. And yes, I know I won't get into too much of the technical details here because my eyes are already glazing over looking at this. But there's a couple really cool things in this config that I think are worth highlighting that unfortunately are only going to be available coming with CHT 4.0. We're upgrading to a new version of Enkidu as a part of that major version bump. And with that is coming some extra new functionality that I'd like to highlight here. Couple of just minor things. First of all, is one of the things that I need to be able to do is pick a random word so that I can try to guess it. I'm using the random function, which, as any of you may have used before, can get you can get unexpected behavior if you use that random function, because it will recalculate every time something changes in the form. So you get different random numbers throughout the course of the form. But what they've added is they've added this once, which will lock it down so that you only will calculate whatever is inside that once function a single time in that form. And so that's how basically I'm able to boil it down and grab my random word based on an index. Another cool new function they've added is this count non-empty function here. And so what I'm trying to solve here is I need to know how many guesses have been made. and I do my guesses in a repeat. So as you go through the pages here, there's just additional guesses, but I only want to consider it an actual guess if they've actually filled in a value for guess. And so count non-empty is a brand new XPath function that I can pass this node list of guesses into, and it'll just tell me exactly how many have actually been filled out, which is pretty handy. The coolest thing though is the length of this config. Now, like I said, in the Wordle game, you've got 6 different opportunities to guess, but if you guess correctly the first, the second, the third time, you want to be able to stop and not continue on to the rest of the guesses. In older versions of the CHT, a configuration like that would be pretty difficult, just because there was no easy way to dynamically change the number of pages in there. Like normally the way you would have had to do it would be just lay out the configuration for each page and then have a separate relevance condition for it. But what I wanted to be able to do is just have a repeat and change the number on my repeat count based on a condition. And so all of my pages for each guess are controlled in this repeat, and the new CHT 4.0 is going to support dynamic repeat counts. And I won't get into all of the logic that's going on here, but basically what this is it, once I put the correct guess in, that changes the number of total pages. So originally it's just 7 pages, but if I put the correct guess in, it ends up dropping down to just, you have the next page is the last one and we're done. So really nicely able to control exactly how many pages are in the repeat while things change as part of going through that repeat. And to kind of go just one level deeper, inside here, in order to actually display this, which by the way is just some kind of HTML that's been injected in here. This is some cool stuff that you could do already in the CHT. But in order to go through those questions, or rather in order to display each word, I'm using a nested repeat with a repeat count that is also using this position function. And if you remember, the dot dot is just actually referencing the parent. So what this position is telling me is how many iterations through the parent repeat I'm already at. So on my 4th page, on my 4th loop through this repeat, I end up with a repeat count in here of 3, which is what's giving me these 3 different lists of letters. So anyway, long story short, we've got some really cool new features coming on the Enketo side in CHT 4.0. I'm really excited about these repeat counts because I think that there's a lot of, in existing forms, a lot of duplication of configuration, just because it's not really easy to dynamically control the repeat counts. And I think that there's a lot of powerful functionality now that we'll be able to build in here. And yeah, just a lot of, I'm excited to see kind of the cool things that we other people can come up with and can do here. So if anybody wants to have a look at this configuration, it is linked on the slide deck that's going to be shared out. So feel free to have a look at that. It's out on GitHub. And otherwise, just shoot me questions in the chat. Happy to talk. Thanks, everybody.
We actually can go to the next slide, please, Anthony. We wanted to take a few minutes to ask for your help and share some ways that you can help us make this CHT the best it can be. But before we start, I just wanted to pause and ask you to read something, actually. So Anthony, can you bring up the next, hit the space bar there? So yeah, just take a second to read this sentence on the right, if you will. Cool. So I hope that resonates with you. And I just wanted to say that our Our product team at Medic is actually pretty good size. There are, I think, about 20, 22, 23 of us, but we really can't do the things mentioned in that sentence without the help of you and the health systems you're supporting. So in the next few minutes, we're going to show you some of the ways that we can work together to identify these most impactful opportunities to make sure that people can easily learn how to use the CHT, and how we can work together to iterate on new features quickly based on real usage in the field. Anthony, you can go ahead and go to the next one. I want to start with impactful opportunities. We want to make sure that the things that we're working on help people in the most impactful way possible. And we can do that by talking to lots of people, but not just anybody. We want to talk to the CHWs, the supervisors, and the app developers that are using the CHT. And this is where you can help. We want to talk to those CHW supervisors and app developers in your programs. And we really want to deeply understand more about their day-to-day. In just a minute, my teammate Leah is going to show you how we do this. And you'll see that it doesn't take that much time, and she'll share with you an example of how we actually run these interviews. The next one is the intuitive user experience. So we want to make sure that the things that we build will be really intuitive and easy to learn. And the best way we do this is by testing the usability of different options before we build things. If you attended last month's roundup, you saw a brief example of how we did this for one of our initiatives. But in summary, we basically create prototypes and test those prototypes with actual users. And we want to do the usability testing with lots of different users in different roles and different contexts. So we'd love to be able to work with you to test some of these prototypes with users in your programs. And again, when I hand over the mic to Leah in just a second, she will show you how those work. And the last thing that I wanted to highlight is that the interviewing users and doing these usability tests can really only get us so far. We really need to see how things actually work when they're being used for real in the field with many, many more users. So we want to work with you to deploy and monitor and evaluate new features so that we can iterate on them quickly and make sure they are having the greatest impact possible. And with that, I'll go ahead and hand it over to Leah and to share with you what it actually looks like when we partner together to do some of these generative interviews and usability testing. Cool, Leah.
Yeah, thanks, Michael. So my name is Leah Ngari, UX researcher at Medic. So why do we do generative interviews? Like Michael has mentioned, is to identify opportunities, and this will help us learn more about user experience, their journey, and any needs that we hear when they tell us how about their day, how they engage with CHT. So for these generative interviews, who do we need to talk to gather more feedback about CHT? Any CHT user, such as CHWs, supervisors, could be people at the health facility. It could be even people at the health management team. They can also tell us their feedback on CHT. So these generative interviews, they usually take around 30 minutes. And this is inclusive of creating rapport with the user, trying to also ask them about general background about their work, and also now giving us feedback about CHT. And the approach we are using is through facilitated phone calls. So the user doesn't need to move from where they are. It's just as making a phone call, and they're able to share their feedback. So here we have an example of one of the generative interviews. So Anthony, please go ahead and play.
Please tell me about the last time you used your CHT app.
Thanks for that. It was about 2 months ago.
My phone has been broken and I haven't been able to access my app. I usually have problems with my connectivity as well, so it has been a long time.
Can you walk me through the steps you remember you took the last time you were able to use it?
So the last time I was using CHT, I was doing a malnutrition follow-up with a child. I was going to check if they attended their last malnutrition treatment visit at the health facility and if they were taking their supplements, because at the health facility they're usually given some supplements. When I got to the household, I found the house was locked and there was no one at home. So I went to the farm to check whether anyone was around. I found the mother of the child doing some farm work. So I asked her if we could continue with the follow-up and she agreed. So we walked back to the house. She handed me a visit card so I could see that she took the child to the health facility. So then I picked up my phone and keyed in the information in the application. And then I asked her whether she had been given an extra appointment date, and she said yes. And I confirmed that by checking the card.
Thanks. A moment ago, you mentioned that you keyed in the information in your app. I'd love to hear more about that. Please start at the beginning. What did you do first when you opened the app on your phone?
Okay, so I opened my application to the task tab. The malnutrition task was the first one on my list, and I tapped on it. I filled out the form with the information she provided, and I submitted it.
Was there anyone else at home?
Oh yes, there was a 4-month-old baby.
And did you do any work for the baby while you were there?
Yes, I needed to follow up on their immunization, so I asked the mother for the card, and I found out that the child had a missed vaccine. I asked her to let me know when she wanted to take the baby to the health facility, and I filled in the immunization form to refer her. Then I closed my application, and I told the woman I would see her next time, depending on when my application will let me know if it's when it's time to come back.
Can you please tell me, in this instance and in as much detail as you can remember, the steps you took to find the baby's profile and fill out the immunization form?
I went to the list of households and scrolled down until I located the households I was in. It took me a while to find the right one, as the list of households is very long. I tapped on it to see the members of the family and found the name of the baby. And then I opened their profile, tapped on the new action button, then selected the immunization form to fill out.
Thanks, Anthony, for that. So we also look at the usability testing, how we are doing it.
Know that you're about to start your workday and you open your application and you see the screen. Please describe what you see on the screen and what you're thinking and what you tap on next.
Okay, so basically I see that there's an important thing, telling me something is different. There's some changes in my app, and the next screen will explain what they are. I'm going to read this screen carefully and tap next. If I understand, then you contact my supervisor if I need support. I understand, so I will tap on next.
And when you tap on next, what do you think you'll see on the next screen?
Probably the changes are, maybe extra buttons, tabs, or a new action you are allowed to do. It could be, I'm not sure. Maybe a different way of doing things.
Great, thanks. I'm going to go ahead and tap next.
This is an image of the tab at the top of the screen in the previous version in your app. Okay, next.
is an image of the new bar that is replacing it. Messages tab, people, targets, and now at the bottom of my app. Right, next.
What do you think will happen when we tap on start?
At the moment, when I open my app, it takes me straight to the messages tab. So I think it will take me to my messages tab.
Thanks, that's helpful context to know. I'm going to go ahead and tap on start.
I see I'm on my messages tab.
How can you tell?
This messages at the top, and the previous screen says that that is the name of the page.
And from the screen, what would you do if you wanted to go to the people tab?
Can you tap on James' name?
Can you please walk me through your thinking? Why would you tap on CHWJ?
If I tap on CHWJ, it will take me to the history of my messages tab. From there, I can access her profile.
These are usually, like we have highlighted there, they are moderated interviews and they take between 30 and 60 seconds.
So here we saw some examples of what it looks like to do some of these generative interviews with users, and also what it looks like to do some usability testing with people as well. So this is what we would really like to work with you on, and establish a relationship where we can talk to more users and really understand how they're using the app and how they might interact with new features that we're working on. So yeah, we really just want to ask for your help and to work with us to let us talk to more users so we can build the best CHT possible. So yeah, if you have any questions on this, or if you're ready to help out and you say like, yes, let's work together on this, definitely reach out. We would love to work together on this. That's it.
Thank you, everyone. My name is Ashley Jones. I am a technical product owner at Medic, and I'm based here in the US in Las Vegas. I wanted to talk about a best practices guide that we're working on. You can see on the right there, which is a little more legible than I wanted. I wanted it just to kind of be a wall of text. But the guide is going to talk about data integrity during onboarding. And by data integrity, we mean how to ensure when you're doing onboarding training and CHWs are working on a training instance, that the data ends up safely there. And then when there's a cutover to production, that the data ends up in the production instance. We've had some issues in deployments where those channels get crossed. CHWs don't know which instance they're on, or they have the training app still installed, and so they're using it for production, or they go ahead and start entering in production data on training. So the guide will hopefully offer a number of different solutions. Not all solutions will fit for all deployments, but as we're working with different ministries of health and facing these problems, we wanted to publish the guide for how to help hopefully solve them. There's a forum post where we've asked for community input, and there's a little bit of discussion there, which is really great to see. Folks are welcome to contribute well after we publish the guide, which we're looking to do by the end of next week. Next slide, Anthony. And then we have a little bit of time left, so I wanted to chat briefly about some upcoming versions that we have. Most recently, we had two patch releases. Those are the .1 and .2 releases for 3.14. These covered two regressions around labels disappearing and then around translations falling back to English. The brief message there is, if you're going for 3.14, 3.14.2 is the best. Our apologies, though, for the regressions that we had there for the two patch releases. Next slide, please, Anthony. 3.15 is wrapping up. We're really trying to push through this release, which is upcoming. The reason that we're trying to get it out is that 4.0 is coming up, which Josh spoke about at the top of the call for in Keto, which we'll get to next. There's a number of bug fixes and features in 3.15. I pulled out 3 that I thought were interesting. We have an issue sometimes where there's a very high latency or incredibly poor bandwidth. There's just a spinner that's shown, and it's very confusing. It's not clear what's happening with the app. So we're looking to give more context to those so that you know there's bad connectivity or there's no connectivity, and you're more aware of what's going on. We had a regression actually some time ago that the app no longer worked as a progressive web app. This is for when you want to use the app in a browser by itself without the dedicated CHT Android app. This functionality had a regression that we weren't aware of, so we're bringing back full PWA compatibility in 3.15. And dual privacy policy, that's right. Sometimes there was a race condition where a CHW would see the privacy policy twice. So this is a bug fix that came up. There's a number of other things. I encourage you to click through, and I think I have the slides. Yes, I've been shouting out, follow along on the slides. But we do encourage folks to follow along so that they can click through to all the different links that we include for more details and context. All right, one more slide for, oh no, yes, Anthony, you're already there. I looked away for a second and it changed. 4.0 is what we call a breaking change. So when you're following semantic versioning, you have the patch releases like we saw at first, the 3.14.1, 3.14.2. When you're doing a non-breaking change, you have a minor release like 3.14 to 3.15. And when you increment the major version from 3 to 4, that denotes a breaking change. So the 2 breaking changes for 4.0 are that there's a new architecture. This has 0 impact to CHWs, to folks using the app on the front end, and is strictly to deal with how the app is architected. We're going from an sort of mildly inappropriate monolithic container to discrete containers in Docker, which is the traditional and best practice in Docker, where every container has a single service. They're easy to monitor, they're easy to audit as far as the logs, and they're also, most importantly, easy to scale out horizontally. This will give us much better performance, especially as we scale up to some larger deployments, which we're planning on facing. As Josh mentioned at the top of the call, we have it updated to in Keto. Josh has been doing an amazing amount of work on this, and we're really excited to see it come in 4. We were hoping for absolute perfect compatibility. There's some changes that we realized that were different, and so we did have to introduce it in 4.0 as a breaking change. We thought it might actually drop in 3, but it ended up being in 4. And then the final breaking change is that we're no longer supporting Android 4.4. We're going to require Android 5.0, and this allows us to fully drop Crosswalk as a compatibility layer, and will introduce evergreen browsers, which is incredibly important for security and for compatibility, especially for things like Xforms and in Keto. There's a ton more in 4.0. It's just starting to get completed as far as public-facing features that you can see. There's a link there for more, and that's all for releases.